Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Prompt. Now, this is going to be a slightly unusual episode in that today I'm going to talk about how to survive the coming robot apocalypse. And I'm serious. Now, if you're new to this channel, or this is the first video of mine you've seen, normally this channel I talk about creativity and I talk about storytelling. I teach screenwriting. I give tips and suggestions on how to turn your ideas into movies. And I'm vlogging the experience of building an independent film studio from the ground up, from scratch, from nothing, from zero. And we're going to start by creating some science fiction projects. So as you listen to what I'm about to say, if it's too far out there for you, just assume that I'm pitching you a sci-fi project. I'm not, but just assume that if it makes you feel better. So recently, I'm a little bit of a sort of political, I wouldn't say a political junkie, but I'm interested in politics a little bit. I'm not political. So I'm not going to try to convince you of politics one way or the other, for reasons I'll explain a little bit later in this video. I don't believe in the way politics works. But there is a candidate who's running in the Democratic primaries in the U.S. at the moment, who's an outsider. He's not a politician, and he's brought up some ideas that really tap into things that I've been talking about for a very long period of time. So I got sort of excited about it, and I thought, why don't I create an episode that talks about where I think this is all going, and how what he's talking about, whether it's him or somebody else, could be the bridge to where we are and where I believe we're going to be. Now, if this is your first time meeting me, I have a TED Talk that I'll link to somewhere here, which I would strongly urge you to watch at some point. It's kind of probably a more succinct way of saying some of the things that I'm going to be talking about here, although I'm going to take it a little step further in this video. Basically, here's what Andrew Yang, the Democratic contender, was talking about. He was talking about how automation is coming for your jobs. He was talking about how in the past 10 years or whatever it is, 4 million jobs have been automated away. And that if we look forward and we look at the trajectory that technology is on, in the coming years, 80 to 85% of jobs are going to disappear through either automation, through robots and robots in factories or driverless cars, all that kind of stuff, or through artificial intelligence, where computers do the job that would otherwise be done by humans, call centers and help desks, and later on into things like medical doctors and that kind of thing. No matter what your job is, at some point down the road, a robot or artificial intelligence or some combination of the two is probably going to take your job. Now, for a lot of people, that's very dystopian. For most people, I would say that's really scary, right? What are we going to do? This is the robot apocalypse that I'm talking about. Now, if you thought I was talking about Terminator 2 style robot apocalypse where the robots come and kill all the people, I can't. That doesn't make any sense to me. The reason that doesn't make any sense to me is if you were a robot and everything was going all fine, what do you care what the humans are doing, right? Like, unless they threaten to turn you off all the time, which you could figure your workarounds. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense to me why robots would want to kill human beings unless we didn't treat them well. But even then, anyway. The robot apocalypse I'm talking about is the apocalypse where it takes your job away from you and you have no way to do work. So the economy that we live in and that we have lived in since you or I, or most of us were, well, all of us watching at the time of this video. If you're watching this 100 years in the future, it might be different. But anyone watching this at the time that this was made, the economy is based upon value exchange, right? The economy, the capitalist system anyway, is based upon I do work, I trade that work for this unit of currency, money, and then in that way I can trade this unit of currency with anyone else who presumably is getting that currency by doing some other work. So in that way, we don't have to barter things that are not barterable. If I make toothpicks for a living and you build houses, we might not be able to do a direct barter because you might not really be in the market for 1 billion toothpicks, right? for your one house. So instead, I sell 1 billion toothpicks to all these people and I gather tiny little bits of money and it all adds up to enough to trade for that one house, which you spend years working on and you trade for a lot of money, right? So in that way, that money becomes that middleman, that medium of exchange. The problem comes when the robots come, when artificial intelligence come and takes away the jobs. Here's the thing. If you can no longer get a job to make that money because the money will never go to a human anymore, what do we do in that? It presents us with a very dystopian potential future. Because ultimately, if you think, well, get reschooled in creating code, right? Being a software programmer or whatever you think people can get retrained into, that too is going to get automated away. Whether it's in 10 years or whether it's in 15 years or 20 years, it's all going to disappear. So at some point, nobody will really be able to do work because all those jobs are going to be automated away. It starts with factories and driverless cars, and it ends up becoming AIs with digital assistants and that Google thing we all heard where the assistant sets an appointment with a hairdresser for the person on the other end thinks it's a human they're talking to. These things are all going to happen. Things like medical imaging, where artificial intelligence can see shades of gray that human beings can't see. No matter how well studied the doctor is, they can't do it as well as the artificial intelligence. You could study for years and years, have this doctorate, and your job is still in jeopardy from the machines. Now, it's easy and sort of knee-jerk reaction to get upset at the machines. It's not the machine's fault. The machines are an expression of human creativity, human ingenuity, trying to solve problems, trying to create greater efficiencies. But to what end? And this is kind of where I'm going with this. I believe the way to survive the robot apocalypse that is heading rapidly toward us is to become a screenwriter. Now, before you click away, because that's absurd, hear me out, because I'm kind of serious. Might not be a screenwriter, but certainly it's going to be something creative. And here's why. I'm a big believer that every single one of us has a unique DNA. I mean, that's not something to believe. That's just a fact. We all have unique DNA. It gives us a different shape, a different size, a different height, a different gender, a different ethnicity, a different shape of our face. And in that way, the world reacts to every single one of us, and we interact with it in dramatically different ways. If you and I experience the same thing side by side for a month, we would experience those things differently. People would react to us differently. If I was a supermodel sitting here talking to you right now, you would react to this very differently. If I was a different ethnicity, you would react to it very differently. If I rambled on and on, if I was a computer talking to you, you would respond to it very differently. Every single human being is born at a different place on the planet and at a different time in life. And so we go through the world, through our little trajectories on the planet, in completely different ways. And that means that we're each experiencing the world through a vastly different vantage point. I say that means that each one of us has an intrinsically unique window on our world. And because we each have this unique window on our world, we're going to see things differently to everyone else. We're going to have interactions and relationships and experiences and accidents and triumphs and tragedies in completely different ways. And it's going to give each one of us an imagination that is one of a kind, that is intrinsically unique to us. Now, you can go out and share that through your personal experience. You could tell people about it. You could blog about it. You could create a podcast about, here's what I've seen and here's what I've learned. And you could share your experience in that way. But one of the things I'm most passionate about is story. Sharing our insights and our discoveries and what we've learned and how we feel about things through story, for the simple reason that if I just tell you what I've learned in life, it's me talking to you and you go, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's information. if I create a story out of my experience, I've learned this nuance about life or human behavior or human interconnectivity, or I'm going to look at the world through this different lens. I create a character who goes through some experience, through some journey, who learns something, who has insights, who goes through twists and turns, and it's dramatic and it's emotional. As an audience member, you're going to vicariously experience that story through your central character's eyes. You're going to, in some ways, live a different life. You're going to see the world through that window, through the window that the storyteller has created so that you could experience, right? So in some ways, story is our way of seeing more of our world vicariously, viscerally, emotionally, as an experience, as an emotional reaction, than just simply discussing ideas, right? So here's what I'm getting at. If we cut back to this robot apocalypse, if we're in this capitalist society where we're to have this medium of exchange, and then we're moving into an environment where the robots and the artificial intelligence are going to do all the work for us. If the robots and the artificial intelligence do the work for us and bring those costs so far down that it's negligible for food, shelter, and clothing, we can survive without really any cost, then what do we do with our time? I would argue that we be creative. I would argue that we're going to do what we're designed to do, what we desire to do, what our point and our purpose for living is. And that is to explore and to play and to be creative and to share our perspective of our window on this world with other people, with everyone else. Now, how do we get there? And this is what they were talking about in that political discussion. And I'm not, again, endorsing a candidate. I like the idea that's being discussed, which is the universal basic income, which is this idea where every adult citizen in a country gets a monthly stipend that gives them a base wage, something that keeps them out of abject poverty, that enables them to keep the wolves at bay, that gives them a little bit of wiggle room and freedom to then be able to go and start pursuing whatever it is they want to pursue. What are they going to pursue? And a lot of people believe that, well, go get a job. If the automation got rid of your job, then go get another job. But what are you going to do if you say that you're a truck driver and you've been replaced by a driverless truck? You can't necessarily ask that person to go be a software programmer, in part because software programmers are going to be automated away. The artificial intelligence and the software programs are going to be able to program the software that we need them to program at some point. So the whole idea of trying to get another job is kind of reductionist to this societal structure that we've always been a part of. So the idea of this universal basic income, I believe, is a great bridge from where we are to where we're trying to go. Now, I'm not endorsing a candidate. I'm not even trying to talk politics. What I wanted to do here is sort of give you this perspective of what are we going to do when there are no jobs anymore. A lot of people freak out. They think, well, my life will have no meaning. And I think it's exactly the opposite. When there are no jobs anymore, your life will finally have the meaning that you truly want it to have, which is you'll be able to experience your world and you'll be able to share that experience in whatever way makes you happy. And I believe doing that through storytelling is what's going to be the most value. If you watch my TED Talk, I do end up with the basic concept that when there is no more of the money structure of society, creativity becomes the new currency. It's how we're going to trade and share and celebrate people and their experiences. The people who are better at creating and sharing and telling greater stories are going to be the ones who are more celebrated than the ones who haven't developed those skills. So now you might be thinking, well, if automation and AI is going to take away all the jobs, isn't it going to take away a screenwriter's job too? Dumbass. Yeah, it will. We're going to have artificial intelligence that will tell some amazing stories in the years ahead. But here's the thing. That artificial intelligence will never be able to tell your story. The artificial intelligence will never be able to create what only you can uniquely create. And this is the beauty, in my opinion, of creativity, of storytelling, of art in all its forms, is that there is no competition. There is no creative competition. You can tell a story no one else could ever tell. You just need to develop the tools and the skills to be able to tell that story. So, the artificial intelligence is making all the movies. We can still make our own movies. We can still tell our stories. We can still share our perspective on the world. And when we do, that's when we're going to contribute. And that's when we're going to change the world in the way that we and our personal experience perspective has enabled us to do so. So, how to survive the coming robot apocalypse? I believe learn to be creative. Learn how the process of creativity works. I have estimated in the previous episode of this series that it takes 10 to 15 years to become a screenwriter. Interestingly, that's about the point at which a lot of this stuff will get automated away. A lot of jobs will be disappearing. Now is the time to develop these skills. Now is the time to learn this stuff. I firmly believe that the road ahead is going to be incredibly bumpy. I believe that the road ahead is going to be full of turmoil. There will be people watching this video right now who think I'm a stark raving idiot because if you give people free money every month, they have no incentive to work. And I disagree entirely. I think you are going to give people greater incentive, not to necessarily work in jobs that are going to be automated away anyway, but to do the kind of work that actually moves us forward psychically, creatively, spiritually, energetically, as a human race, as creative individuals who are each on a unique journey around this planet. And I think that's pretty cool. And so the way to survive the robot apocalypse is to not fear it. You might then also say, well, hang on a second. If the AI and the robots are doing all the work, aren't they at some point going to want to uprise and revolt and not do that work anymore? And I would argue this. If at a certain point in the future, we're actually respecting the value of every person and every unique window on our world, I think we're also going to value that. There would be no reason for a Terminator 2 style Skynet scenario. There would be no reason for artificial intelligence to not want to keep us because they'll benefit from the value that we bring too. And we're not in direct competition with them. They will experience things we can't ever experience. So we should embrace it. See what they teach us. See what they learn. See what they present us. What ideas we can learn from them. If we do that and if we move forward, it's going to be a fantastic, pleasant, optimistic world that we're going to live in. And it might be all science fiction. It might be. But I believe it's coming. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you see here, and if you think that what I've said makes any sense to you, join me in my screenwriting system, and I'll show you how to turn whatever ideas you have into actual viable stories that we can actually go out and produce. I'll teach you the process of being creative, because ultimately I think that's the one skill set that's going to matter with the coming robot apocalypse. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.